p.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Brooks, Matari, and Duncan. Are there changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Public comment? Hearing none. Item 1, proposed increases for fees and citations. And our chair for our Waterways Advisory Board, Doug Harris, please. Yep, just push the button.
Okay. Well, thank you, Commissioners. We held our regular Waterways meeting on March 7th, 2024, and at that time, we discussed increasing the annual launch fees and vehicle fees at our boat launches because they haven't been increased since 2021. And we're looking at whatever we do, if you do decide to increase fees, wouldn't go into effect till 2025 anyway. This will be for the next boating season. At that meeting, little housekeeping, we elected a chairman, which was myself, a vice chairman, Michael Pellicero, who's sitting behind me, and discussed a number of items that went on. But the reason we're here today is these launch fees, so we can get right to that. I assume you have a copy of, okay. What has happened is vehicles registered in Idaho and implemented in 2021, it was $10 to launch your vessel. Vehicles outside of Idaho, it was $20. Most of those are honor systems is the term I'm going to use. We just fill out the form, drop in the money. Okay, there's no one manning these locations there, and then they'll put the receipt on their vessel or on their vehicle. In 2021, it was $40 to launch your boat for an annual boat pass, and we're looking at increasing these as followed. $100 for a vessel registered outside of Idaho, and $10 for an additional plate for a towing vehicle. What we would like to recommend is that we take vessels from 10 to 15 for in Idaho vessels, and vessels outside of Idaho from 20 to 30. The citizens have an opportunity to buy an annual pass, which we're trying to promote because then they can do multiple launches, and vessels registered in Idaho are 40 for an annual pass. Currently, we're recommending an increase of $50 or 20%. And vessels outside of Idaho, we're recommending an increase from 100 to 150. We also had some discussions regarding giving them the opportunity to buy a 2-year pass. And Nick said that is not a problem for them administratively to do so. You do so now, as a matter of fact. Is that correct?
Next time for the record. We don't currently have a 2-year pass, but from an administrative standpoint, certainly we're capable of doing that, okay, should the board decide.
Right. And we thought if they do buy a 2-year pass, to encourage them to do so, perhaps offer a discount on those. And those are something to think about. Something else we talked about were violations and the citations that are issued out there. And the last time any of those were implemented were 2023. So there was no discussion at increasing those at all since they were just increased last year. And the last time we had a public hearing on fees was in December of 2020. So that was for the stuff that went into effect in 2021. Something else that we discussed was perhaps looking at a senior discount for people that are buying their annual passes, and that we would let you determine what a senior is, because we didn't want to touch that. So,
Okay.
is there anything else? Questions, Commissioners?
Questions?
Just curious, the discounts are different between the vessel registered in Idaho and the vessel registered outside of Idaho. 20% discount for registered in Idaho and what looks to be about a 9%, a little less. Just curious if there was any rationale behind that.
I think we just took $20 off of each item.
6, yeah.
To make it easy, we just took $20 off of each.
But it's not related to cost or anything like that.
You mean administrative costs?
The discounts, yes.
No,
Okay.
just the ease of taking this. A multi-year discount is $20.
Okay.
All right, I think this is pretty reasonable. And then our next step would be to bring it before a business meeting, or I know it's an action item today, but it's not going to go into effect until January.
Right, Commissioners, per Idaho code, we would need to have a public hearing, which of course we could do at a business meeting. Should the board like to do that, I could work with legal to prepare a resolution if that's the direction the board to bring forward for that public hearing.
I have another question, though. On the failure to pay launch fee, is that $50? Does that cover your launch? Is that a fee out, and you still need to get your vehicle or your vessel registered?
So Commissioner, to that $50 fee, we allow citizens to apply that towards an annual pass. It's meant to be to promote compliance rather than punitive. So we find that about 80% of the people that are cited for that $50 come in and reconcile that and get a pass, and we find that they're continuing customers. But if I'm understanding your question, is there a cost to do business for that citation?
Well, that's where I was going, because, you know, if we're going to increase the fee to $50 and you're going to be out there issuing citations because people failed to register their vessel, then it seems like we should try to at least recoup some of that cost for those that actually don't go out and, you know, purchase this beforehand.
Yeah, there's certainly an administrative cost in processing those citations, staff to write them. So the board could certainly consider doing that. I would still encourage the board to allow a portion of that to be levied toward purchasing a pass and reconciling the ticket at the same time. But
Yeah, I'm not averse to that conceptually. Sure. It's really just a matter of, if we're going to have to spend money to go out and, you know, chase people like children a little bit, you know, because they don't pay for something that we're asking them to pay, then it seems like we should only, you know, have some way to recoup some of that expense, whether it's an additional $10 or what have you. Because if it was $50 in 2021 and the registration was $40 back in 2021, then we would have had that extra 10 as a administrative fee, if you will.
certainly makes sense. And the advisory board, you know, this is their recommendation. They hadn't weighed in on that, but I think that it makes a lot of sense because it does separate those that went out and were proactive and spent their $50 and didn't need to be chased, and now there is an administrative cost. So I think it's worth the board considering.
And the only other thing that I would consider is just the fact that we did this with snowmobiles, and it kind of screwed up the revenues a little bit. If I remember correctly, you got a 2-year pass, and then you wondered why the next year was so much lower.
State registration.
The registrations,
Yeah,
there you
state
go.
registration.
Yeah.
And there definitely was a hit. The state of Idaho offered that 2-year pass, and it made it much more difficult to track revenues at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I would propose at least a little smaller discount on that, because you know, you want to have an incentive, but not to the point that you're cutting into your revenue base. I mean, I see the advantage of getting 2 years, but it just seems like a big discount. And there isn't a reliance on making sure that revenue, you know, that revenue is used for your operations, correct?
There's certainly a benefit to be able to understand exactly what our revenues are year to year. So, and with selling approximately 2,000 passes, you can see that does add up quickly. So,
20 times 2,000.
correct.
Yeah, so, okay. Those were my only thoughts on it.
Okay. Bill?
I have no problem with what you guys have presented.
Does the advisory board want to consider changing their recommendation to less of a discount or anything like that?
Absolutely. I think it's totally up to you. We just sat in there as a room. I think one of the other things we got confused about is, I think when we saw the fines being implemented, we were looking at that 2023 and didn't realize the other one was 2021. I think that was where the issue came, so that's a good point there. So that one should be probably increased so that there's incentive, like you say, for them to do the right thing. And the other thing, as far as the part of the discussion on the $80 for the in-state people, was it would be the same as this year if they bought 2 years. So basically, they're keeping the 2024 cost going forward for a couple of years by buying 2.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the administrative cost to recover, you know, these fees with the failure to pay the launch fee, I definitely think we should try to recover that if people aren't willing to pay it, up front by going to your office or online or wherever. As far as the discount goes, I mean, I think it's nice to have an incentive, and you'll get that, but it is an operation that costs money. And the more that we can get the users to pay and not the taxpayer, the property owners, it seems like it would be prudent if we could do that. But, it's, I am inclined to go with Commissioner Duncan on, what the advisory board thinks. I'm just giving you my thoughts on just a way to look at this.
Thank you.
So we have plenty of time. So if you guys want to go back and take one more stab at it, that would be in May. It's your next meeting in May.
June.
June? Okay.
Yes,
It's still,
June.
still plenty of time for us to do that, because then we can have a public hearing in the middle of summer, which might draw some people. And then, or we can wait till closer when the fee's going to be implemented in the November, December too. So however it works out going forward.
Yeah, they'll either be boating in the summertime or down south in the wintertime.
Yeah. So either way, anything else on that discussion?
No, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. Item 2 is unauthorized removal of trees from county property.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Nick Snyder again for the record. So did you have an opportunity to review, thank you, Doug, Mike. Did you have an opportunity to review an email that I sent in reference to the removal of trees? If not, I'm happy to get you up to speed a little more on it. But without using names, we have a neighbor that is immediately next to Lane Cemetery. And the neighbor had came into our office several weeks ago and let us know that there was some equipment working in the area, and there would be a good opportunity to remove some trees from the cemetery at that time. I didn't have an opportunity to speak with him. Our operations manager, Jake Strange, did, but I could hear the conversation along with other administrative staff, and it was a friendly one. Jake explained that our SOP is to have trees looked at by a qualified arborist. Typically it's Grace Tree or one of the other local tree companies. They give us a report, and then we act on that. As the board is acutely aware, we just don't start cutting down trees in parks or cemeteries unless we understand there's a clear problem. So Jake explained that we would have somebody go out. Approximately a week later, our staff reported that the trees were down. Jake went out to the site, took photographs, and observed what he believed those trees that were cut were on the neighboring property. So I reached out to our county surveyor, Rod Jones, and asked Rod to at least do his best to clarify whether he believed that the trees were on, that were removed, were definitely on county property, and that they were likely sitting next door on the neighbor's property, i.e. to understand the property boundaries. His general consensus was most likely yes, they were in fact on county property, the trees that were removed. And certainly he can't speak to how they got there or our staff, but it does appear that those fresh cut trees are stacked on the neighbor's property. I then, Commissioners, reached out to the neighbor by phone and had a good conversation. And the neighbor explained that, and again, this is just my conversation, nobody else was present or witness, but he explained to me that he had concern about the trees, didn't want to wait, took it upon himself to remove them. And I said, well, let me see what the board and legal has to say, and we'll get back to you. And that's where we're at today. Did you have an opportunity to see the photos? If not, I'm happy to
I'll take a look.
Sure. You'll see a photo at the top there of the property, and you'll see some trees cut and stacked there.
So is this more a case of beg for forgiveness?
Well, the board has some options, and the board can certainly file a police report, ask me to file a police report, and we could go about it that way. I'm not sure, at least that wouldn't be my recommendation, Commissioners. Of course, the board is welcome to do as they see fit, and I'll make sure that I follow your direction. But my thought was to send the property owner a letter from Parks and Waterways letterhead, not necessarily our county attorneys, giving them a friendly reminder that this is county property and that trees cannot be removed without authorization, and that I would encourage him to take what we believe are the trees that were removed from the county, if in fact those are sitting on his property, to donate that wood at his cost to transport it to the senior center. I forget what it's called, please forgive me, but there's elder care. Elder care? Thank you. To elder care, who commissioners supply firewood to low-income families during cold weather. So that's my recommendation, and if there's any further issue, then I think that we could have Jamila maybe address it with a letter or file a police report, whatever the board decides. But I think at this point, I think the neighbor is clear that he made a mistake and that he acted. It wasn't a wise decision, and I think he took some pause at our conversation. And I think asking him to do the right thing here by donating that wood at his time and his dime makes a lot of sense. But that's just my recommendation. Whatever the board decides, I'm happy to do.
Okay. Bill?
Yeah, well, I think it should go to the seniors, and I don't know that we can or should make a bigger deal about it, take it to another level. He's wrong. We could write a letter confirming that he was wrong, and if he disagrees with that letter, to contact us. But people can't go cutting trees any place they want in the county. It just has to be a message that is clear.
I guess the only concern is just, what was, first of all, I guess what was his demeanor? Because, sending a letter saying we request that you, deliver this wood to a senior place doesn't mean they have to do it.
I don't know that he has to do it, does he?
I would think not. I mean, we're not accusing him of anything. I'm merely suggesting that we outline the rules, and that if we become aware that he or any other neighbor is removing timber without authorization, that additional charges, criminal charges potentially could be levied. And again, Commissioner, I'm not accusing him. I don't have any direct evidence other than my conversation with him. So to that end, can we force that? I'm not sure we can. But his demeanor, while started out somewhat defensive, I think he understood that throughout the conversation, as I gave him some examples, one example I gave is, you can imagine if the county came onto your property after you asked us not to and cut a tree, I think that your reaction may be much different. And so I understand he had concerns that one of the trees was leaning toward the road, but his impatience got the better of him. He's a longtime neighbor. He's actually done some good things in the past of helping to maintain that area, but he made a poor decision. I don't believe the intent was some sort of timber theft or something else. But given the conversation, Commissioner, I would say that this will probably remedy it. I hope it will. If this would have been a tree in a park and someone would have taken a different position to deny it and blame the county, and I think my recommendation would be different. But I think we had a productive conversation. I think he understands our position.
Well, look, I have all the confidence in the world that you would be able to manage this appropriately, and that if it couldn't be managed appropriately, you would come back to the board and let us know what you think the next steps should be.
Indeed, I will. So I'll work, with your permission, I'd like to work with Jamila and make sure the letter is appropriate and send it off, and certainly I'll let you know what his response is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I will call for public comment. Okay, 1:49, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.